For all of Chapter 2, the satellite was a mirror, a bent pipe. It caught your phone's signal, amplified it, and forwarded it down to a base station sitting safely on the ground. All the intelligence, all the 5G, lived on Earth. But there's a second architecture, and it's radical. What if the base station itself wasn't on the ground? What if we put the gNB-DU up on the satellite, in orbit? That's Regenerative NTN. And it doesn't just tweak the numbers, it rewrites the entire timing and architecture picture we've spent this whole series building. Let's see what changes when the base station goes to space. Start with the core difference. A transparent payload is dumb. And that's not an insult, it's the design. It receives your radio signal, shifts its frequency, amplifies it, and retransmits it. It never looks inside. It doesn't know or care that it's carrying 5G. It would forward anything. A regenerative payload is completely different. It actually demodulates and decodes your signal all the way up, recovers the real bits, and then re-encodes and retransmits them fresh. In other words, there is a genuine base station on board, doing real processing in orbit. And this one change has a beautiful side effect. In a transparent system, every bit of noise the signal picks up on the way to the satellite gets amplified and passed along, and more piles on over the feeder link. Noise accumulates across the whole path. But a regenerative satellite cleans the signal completely. It recovers the exact bits and sends a pristine copy onward. The uplink and the downlink become two independent, clean hops instead of one long, noisy one. That alone is a big win for the link budget. So if there's a base station up there, what exactly is on the satellite? 3GPP defines two flavors. Option 1, the entire gNB-DU goes on board, the full base station in orbit. It connects back to the 5G core network on the ground over the feeder link, which now carries the NG interface, the same interface a normal gNB uses to reach the core. The feeder link has become pure backhaul. Option 2 is subtler, and it uses the split we covered in our RAN video. Remember, a gNB can be split into a central unit and a distributed unit. In this option, only the distributed unit, the DU, goes on the satellite, handling the real-time radio processing. The central unit stays on the ground. They are connected by the F1 interface, running over the feeder link. This is clever because the time-critical fast-loop processing, scheduling, HIRQ, the physical layer, happens right there in orbit, close to the phone, while the higher layer control, like RRC, stays on the ground where it's easy to upgrade. Best of both worlds. Now the part that matters most for everything we've learned, timing. In the transparent world, your phone's radio link ran all the way to the ground, up to the satellite, down to the gateway, into the ground gNB-DU, a full round trip of about half a second. Every radio layer loop, every HARQ exchange, every scheduling decision had to survive that whole delay. But in a regenerative system, the gNB-DU is on the satellite. So your phone's radio link now ends at the satellite. The service link, and that's it. The round trip for the radio interface is roughly halved because the long feeder hop to the ground is no longer part of it. The feeder link still exists, of course, but it's now backhaul, carrying core network traffic, not the tight radio timing loops. Your phone still has to pre-compensate its service link delay, using GNSS and ephemeris exactly as before, but the reference point and the base station now sit together, up at the satellite. That common timing advance term, the feeder link share, we spent a whole chapter on. For the radio link, it effectively collapses. The gNB-DU is right there. Shorter loops, tighter control, all because the brains moved upstairs. So what does putting the base station in orbit actually buy you? 3 big things. First, latency. The radio link round trip is roughly cut in half, so every control loop, every retransmission, every scheduling decision is faster and tighter. Second, that clean signal advantage, no noise accumulation across the feeder, which stretches the link budget. And third, and this is the exciting one, once the base station is in space, satellites can talk directly to each other over inter-satellite links, laser or radio crosslinks between them. Traffic can hop from satellite to satellite across a whole constellation and only come down to Earth near its destination. You could route a call through space, gateway to gateway, barely touching the ground. That's the foundation of a true space-based network, not just an extension of the ground one. But nothing is free, and a base station in orbit is genuinely hard. First, you're putting a complex, power-hungry computer into space. It needs solar power, thermal management, radiation-hardened electronics, all while doing heavy real-time signal processing. A dumb, bent pipe is far simpler, cheaper, and more reliable, which is exactly why transparent payloads flew first. Second, software. That gNB-DU has to be maintained and upgraded in orbit for years. You can't send an engineer up to reboot it. Third, the core network link. The connection to the ground core over the feeder still has to be managed, and if that feeder link drops, the satellite needs a plan, whether that's an inter-satellite path or graceful handling until it reconnects. Transparent is simple but limited. Regenerative is powerful but complex. And that trade-off is exactly why both architectures exist side by side in the standard. So, Regenerative NTN. Instead of a mirror, a real base station in orbit, decoding and regenerating your signal. Either the whole gNB-DU goes up, or just the distributed unit, with the central unit on the ground over F1. The radio round trip roughly halves, because the base station now sits at the satellite, and the feeder link becomes backhaul. You gain latency, a cleaner link, and inter-satellite routing at the cost of real complexity in space. So far, though, everything, transparent and regenerative, has assumed a satellite that basically stays put. Geostationary. But most of the excitement and most of the hard problems live in low Earth orbit, where the satellite races across the sky in minutes. That's where we go next. Subscribe to RANspace.